One of the hardest things you'll ever have to do in life is stop giving your emotional energy to someone who already chose to leave. That's not easy. I don't care how strong you are, I don't care how successful you are, and I don't care how confident people think you are. When your heart has been attached to somebody, letting go feels like you're trying to breathe with a weight sitting on your chest. But here's what I need you to understand. The pain you're feeling isn't just because they left. A lot of pain comes from the fact that you keep feeding the memory of someone who is no longer feeding your future. See, every morning you wake up with a choice. You can invest your emotions into building a better life, or you can spend another day investing them in someone who already made a decision that didn't include you. That's the choice. And too many people choose the second option without even realizing it. They check their phone, hoping for a message. They look at old pictures. They replay conversations over and over again. They imagine different endings. They wonder if the other person misses them. They spend hours trying to understand why things happened the way they did. But while they're busy asking questions about yesterday, today keeps passing them by. Let me tell you something I've learned about life. Your emotional energy is one of the most valuable things you own. Money can be earned back. Opportunities can come again. Even time can be managed better. But emotional energy is different. Every time you give it to the wrong person, you have less to give to yourself, your family, your dreams, and your future. That's why you have to protect it like it's your greatest investment. Some people walk away physically, but they never really leave because you keep carrying them in your mind. They don't have to call you anymore because you call them in your thoughts every single day. They don't have to knock on your door because you've already left the front door of your heart wide open. They don't have to ask for your attention because you give it away freely every time you stop what you're doing just to think about them again. That's exhausting. And the sad part is they're not even asking for it anymore. You're volunteering your peace. Here's something that changed my perspective a long time ago. When someone shows you that they're comfortable living life without you, believe them. Stop trying to rewrite the story. Stop trying to create excuses for behavior that has already given you an answer. Sometimes silence is an answer. Distance is an answer. Lack of effort is an answer. You don't always need someone to say, I don't want this anymore. Their actions already spoke louder than those words ever could. Now, that doesn't mean you become bitter. It doesn't mean you hate them. It doesn't mean you wish bad things on them. Carrying hate is just another way of carrying them. You're still giving them your energy. Real freedom comes when your heart is no longer controlled by love or anger toward that person. You're simply at peace. You wish them well, but you no longer allow them to determine how your day goes. Too many people confuse holding on with loyalty. They think that suffering proves how deeply they loved. No, it doesn't. Sometimes suffering simply proves that you forgot to love yourself while loving someone else. There's nothing noble about abandoning your own peace just because someone else abandoned the relationship. Your responsibility is not to stay broken. Your responsibility is to heal. Healing begins when you stop feeding the wound. Imagine trying to recover from an injury while scratching it every single day. It would never close. That's exactly what happens emotionally. Every old message you reread, every picture you stare at for hours, every social media profile you secretly check, every fantasy about them coming back is another scratch on a wound that desperately wants to heal. Then you wonder why you're still hurting months later. It's because you keep reopening what life is trying to close. You have dreams that still need your attention. You have talents that haven't even reached their full potential yet. You have people in your life who genuinely care about you. You have opportunities waiting for you. But none of them can receive the best version of you if all your emotional energy is trapped in yesterday. I want you to remember something. The person who left is not your identity. They were part of your journey, not the definition of your life. Your story didn't begin when they entered it, and it certainly doesn't end because they exited. You were somebody before you met them, and you will become somebody even greater after them if you stop giving away the emotional strength that belongs to you. So every time your mind tries to return to someone who already chose another path, gently remind yourself that your future deserves your attention more than your past deserves your tears. Protect your heart, guard your peace, invest your emotions in the people, the purpose, and the life that are still choosing you every single day. That's how you reclaim your power, and that's how you truly begin moving forward. One of the biggest mistakes people make after a relationship ends is believing they lost themselves along with the other person. They start saying things like, I don't know who I am anymore, or my life doesn't feel the same without them. But let me tell you something that can completely change the way you look at your life. Your identity was never supposed to be built on another human being. The moment your happiness depends entirely on someone else's presence, you've handed them a level of control they were never meant to have. Before that person came into your life, you already had dreams. You had goals, talents, a personality, and a purpose. You laughed before you met them. You smiled before they ever sent you that first message. You woke up every morning with possibilities waiting for you. So don't convince yourself that they took your entire life with them when they walked away. They didn't. They simply left a chapter that has already been written. The rest of the book is still waiting for you. See, too many people spend years becoming what somebody else wants instead of becoming who they were created to be. They stop enjoying the hobbies they love because their partner wasn't interested. They stopped spending time with friends because the relationship demanded all their attention. They stopped chasing career opportunities because they were trying to make someone else comfortable. Little by little, they trade pieces of themselves for approval. Then one day the relationship ends and they wonder why they feel empty. They feel empty because they slowly abandoned themselves long before the other person left. Your life is supposed to have a foundation that's stronger than any relationship. Relationships should add joy to your life, not become the only reason you feel alive. A healthy relationship is built by two complete people choosing to walk together, not by two incomplete people expecting each other to fill every empty space. That's too much pressure for anyone to carry. You've got to stop measuring your worth by someone else's decision. If someone couldn't see your value, that doesn't mean your value disappeared. Think about a diamond lying in the dirt. Just because somebody walks past it without noticing doesn't make it any less valuable. The diamond is still worth exactly what it was worth before. The only thing that changed was the observer. The same is true for you. Someone failing to appreciate you says more about their vision than your value. I know it's tempting to think, if I had been prettier, smarter, richer, funnier, or more patient, maybe they would have stayed. That's the trap. When you start negotiating against your own worth, you'll never find peace. There will always be another reason to blame yourself. But the truth is, not every relationship ends because someone wasn't enough. Sometimes people simply aren't meant to continue the journey together. That's life. Don't spend months trying to become the person someone rejected wanted you to be. Spend that time becoming the person you've always wanted to become. Learn something new. Improve your skills. Read books that challenge your thinking. Take care of your body. Strengthen your faith. Build your finances. Invest in your future. Every step you take toward becoming your best self reminds you that your life is still moving forward. Regardless of who decided not to come along, confidence isn't pretending you don't hurt. Confidence is knowing your pain doesn't define you. It's waking up every day and deciding that your circumstances will not decide your future. It's understanding that setbacks are part of growth, not proof that you failed. The strongest people aren't those who never experience heartbreak. They're the ones who refuse to let heartbreak become their identity. Look in the mirror and remember that you are more than somebody's ex. You're more than a broken relationship. You're more than a painful memory. You're a person with gifts, purpose, intelligence, kindness, and unlimited potential. Nobody can take those things away unless you willingly hand them over. Every day you spend rediscovering yourself is a day you're becoming stronger than you were before. You'll begin to notice that your confidence doesn't come from compliments anymore. It comes from keeping promises to yourself. It comes from showing up for your own life. It comes from realizing that happiness isn't something another person hands you. It's something you build through your choices, your mindset, and your willingness to keep growing. One day you'll wake up and realize you no longer introduce yourself through your past relationship. You'll stop defining your life by what ended and start defining it by what you're creating. That's when freedom begins. That's when your identity belongs to you again. And once you truly understand that your happiness, your purpose, and your future were never dependent on one person, you'll never again give someone else the power to make you forget who you are. One of the greatest lessons you'll ever learn is that silence and confidence will take you farther than anger, begging, or revenge ever will. When someone hurts you, your first instinct is often to react. You want to send that long message explaining how badly they treated you. You want them to know exactly how much pain they caused. You want to make them regret what they did. You think if you can just find the right words, they'll finally understand your value. But let me tell you something I've learned about people. The ones who truly value you don't need to be convinced, and the ones who don't value you usually aren't changed by another emotional speech. See, when emotions are running high, we often make decisions that keep us connected to the very people we're trying to get over. Every text message you send hoping for closure is another thread keeping you tied to the past. Every argument you continue is another invitation for that person to occupy your mind. Every attempt to make them jealous is another sign that you're still asking them to validate your worth. That's not freedom. That's emotional dependence wearing a different outfit. Real strength isn't found in the loudest voice. It's found in the quiet confidence of someone who knows their value without needing applause. Think about the strongest people you've ever met. They don't waste all day proving how important they are. They don't chase attention. They don't argue with everyone who misunderstands them. They simply continue living with purpose because they understand that their character speaks louder than their emotions. You have to understand something about silence. Silence isn't weakness. Silence is discipline. It's choosing not to let temporary emotions create permanent damage. It's refusing to let another person's actions determine your behavior. Anybody can explode in anger. Anybody can fire off a message they'll regret later. Anybody can seek revenge. But it takes maturity to pause, think clearly, and walk away with your dignity still intact. I've seen people destroy months of healing because they couldn't resist sending one more message. They finally started feeling better, but then loneliness showed up one evening. Instead of sitting with those feelings and allowing them to pass, they reached for their phone. One text became 10. One conversation reopened old wounds. Suddenly, all the progress they had made felt like it disappeared. That's why emotional discipline matters. Feelings come and go, but your decisions have consequences that can last much longer. A lot of people believe revenge brings satisfaction. They imagine that if they can make the other person hurt the way they hurt, everything will feel balanced again. But revenge is expensive. It costs you time, peace, energy, and focus. While you're busy planning how to make someone regret losing you, you're not investing in becoming the person you were meant to become. You're allowing someone else's choices to keep controlling your own life long after they've left. Here's the truth. People often expect you to fall apart after disappointment. They expect you to stay angry. They expect you to complain about them to everyone who will listen. They expect your entire life to revolve around what happened. That's why your greatest response is growth. Nothing surprises people more than someone who refuses to become bitter. Nothing is more powerful than quietly rebuilding your life while everyone expects you to remain broken. Confidence isn't pretending nothing happened. Confidence is acknowledging the pain without allowing it to define your future. It's looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, yes, this hurt me. Yes, I cried. Yes, I was disappointed. But this experience will not become my identity. That's real confidence. It's built through consistency, not perfection. Stop believing that closure has to come from another person. Sometimes closure comes from accepting that not every question will receive an answer. You may never fully understand why someone changed. You may never hear the apology you deserve. You may never receive the explanation you spent months waiting for. But healing doesn't begin when they finally say the right words. Healing begins when you stop requiring those words in order to move forward. Your peace is too valuable to place in somebody else's hands. If your happiness depends on whether they apologize, call, text, or admit they were wrong, then you've surrendered control of your emotional life. Take that control back. Decide that your future will no longer be delayed by someone else's choices. That's what emotional freedom looks like. Don't waste your energy trying to prove your value to people who already had the opportunity to see it. Your responsibility isn't to convince everyone you're worthy. Your responsibility is to live in a way that reflects the value you already possess. Walk with integrity, speak with kindness, keep your promises, continue improving yourself even when nobody is watching. That's confidence. Life has an amazing way of rewarding people who stay focused on their own journey. While others spend years looking backwards, successful people keep looking ahead. They understand that every hour spent complaining is an hour stolen from creating something meaningful. Every day spent seeking revenge is a day that could have been invested in building a stronger future. One day, the person who hurt you may see how much you've grown. They may notice your confidence, your peace, and your success. They may even wonder how you moved on so completely, but by that time, it won't matter nearly as much as you once thought. Why? Because your motivation won't be proving them wrong anymore. Your motivation will be honoring yourself. When you stop reacting to every disappointment, you discover a strength you never knew you had. You begin making decisions based on wisdom instead of emotion. You stop chasing people who aren't chasing you. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop seeking approval from people who were never qualified to define your worth in the first place. That's the power of silence. That's the power of confidence. They don't erase the pain overnight, but they protect your dignity while you heal. They remind you that your future deserves more attention than your past, and that the strongest statement you'll ever make is not with your words, but with the life you choose to build after everything tried to break you. One of the most important decisions you will ever make is choosing to build a life so meaningful that your future becomes bigger than your past. Too many people stay trapped in yesterday because they believe the best part of their life has already happened. They keep replaying old memories, old conversations, and old relationships until those moments become more real than the life standing right in front of them. But let me tell you something. God didn't wake you up this morning so you could spend another day living in yesterday. He gave you another day because there is still purpose ahead of you. When a relationship ends, it's easy to believe you've lost everything. You convince yourself that your happiness left with that person. You tell yourself you'll never feel the same again. But the truth is, you're not grieving your future. You're grieving the picture you created in your mind. You're grieving the plans you imagined, the dreams you expected, and the life you thought you were going to have. Life doesn't always follow the script we write for it, but that doesn't mean the story is over. Sometimes the greatest chapters are the ones you never planned. Here's what I've learned about life. You cannot drive toward your future while staring into the rearview mirror. Try it in a car and you'll end up in a ditch. Yet people do it emotionally every single day. They keep looking backward, wondering what they could have done differently. They replay every mistake, every argument, every goodbye. Meanwhile, opportunities are passing them by because their eyes are fixed on something they cannot change. There comes a moment when you have to make a decision. Are you going to spend the next 5 years talking about what happened to you? Or are you going to spend the next 5 years becoming someone you're proud of? Because those are two completely different lives. One is built on regret. The other is built on purpose. The most successful people in the world all have one thing in common. They understand that pain can become fuel. They don't deny what happened. They don't pretend it didn't hurt. They simply refuse to let that pain become the final chapter of their story. Instead, they use it as motivation to grow stronger, wiser, and more focused than they were before. Think about how much time people waste waiting for someone else to change. They put their own dreams on hold while hoping another person finally realizes what they lost. Months become years. Years become a lifetime. Before they know it, they've sacrificed their own future while waiting for somebody else's decision. That's a dangerous way to live because your destiny should never depend on someone who already walked away. Imagine if you took all the energy you've been spending on heartbreak and invested it in yourself instead. Think about what could happen if every hour spent crying became an hour spent learning a new skill. What if every moment you spent checking their social media became a moment spent improving your health, reading a great book, building a business, strengthening your faith, or creating financial freedom? Your life would begin changing in ways you never thought possible. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens through daily decisions. It's choosing discipline when excuses feel easier. It's choosing hope when disappointment wants to settle into your heart. It's waking up every morning with the determination to become a little better than you were yesterday. Those small choices don't seem important at first, but over time they create extraordinary results. Don't underestimate the power of becoming busy with purpose. A mind filled with meaningful goals has less room for unnecessary pain. That doesn't mean you ignore your emotions. It means you refuse to let your emotions stop your progress. Healing and growing can happen at the same time. You don't have to wait until every hurt disappears before you begin building your future. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is a vision that's bigger than your disappointment. When your purpose becomes clear, your problems begin to lose their power. Suddenly your focus shifts. You're no longer asking, why did they leave? You're asking, what can I become because they left? That's a completely different mindset. One keeps you stuck. The other pushes you forward. Your future is full of people you haven't met yet, opportunities you haven't discovered yet, and blessings you haven't experienced yet. Don't let one painful chapter convince you that the entire book is ruined. Some of the greatest relationships begin after the greatest heartbreaks. Some of the biggest opportunities appear after the greatest disappointments. Sometimes life has to remove what no longer fits so it can make room for something better. I need you to stop measuring your future by your current feelings. Feelings change. Seasons change. Circumstances change. The person you are today is not the person you'll be a year from now if you keep growing. Every lesson you learn makes you wiser. Every challenge you overcome makes you stronger. Every setback you survive increases your resilience. You're becoming someone new, even if you can't see it yet. There will come a day when you wake up and realize you smile without thinking about them. You'll laugh without forcing it. You'll make plans that don't include your past. You'll feel excited about tomorrow instead of afraid of it. That day doesn't arrive because time magically fixes everything. It arrives because you made the choice to keep moving, even when it was difficult. Your future deserves your full attention. It deserves your energy, your creativity, your passion, and your commitment. Stop giving your best years to memories that cannot love you back. Stop sacrificing tomorrow because you're still negotiating with yesterday. Stand up, believe in yourself again. Chase your dreams with everything you've got and create a life so full of meaning, purpose, peace, and growth that when you eventually look back at the person who walked away, you'll realize they were never the end of your story. They were simply the beginning of the life that finally taught you how powerful, valuable, and unstoppable you were always meant to become. The greatest comeback you will ever make is not convincing someone to return to your life. The greatest comeback is becoming someone they can no longer recognize because you've grown into a stronger, wiser, and more confident version of yourself. Too many people believe winning means getting the relationship back. They think success is hearing an apology, receiving another phone call, or watching someone regret walking away. But let me tell you something. If your definition of victory depends on another person's decision, then you're still giving them control over your life. Real victory begins when your happiness no longer depends on whether they notice your transformation. Life has a way of teaching us through disappointment. Sometimes people leave because they don't understand your value. Sometimes they leave because they're chasing something they believe is better. Sometimes they leave because they're simply not ready for the kind of commitment you were offering. Whatever the reason may be, don't allow someone else's choice to become a permanent limit on your own potential. Their decision belongs to them. Your future belongs to you. I've watched people spend years trying to prove someone wrong. They work harder, earn more money, improve their appearance, and build successful lives. But deep inside, they're still hoping one specific person notices. That's a dangerous place to live because it means your motivation is still connected to your past. You're still allowing someone who walked away to influence every step you take. Freedom comes when you improve your life because you respect yourself, not because you're trying to impress someone who failed to appreciate you. Growth is a personal journey. Nobody else can walk it for you. Every morning you have an opportunity to make choices that move you closer to becoming the person you were created to be. You can choose discipline over excuses. You can choose faith over fear. You can choose learning over complaining. You can choose gratitude over bitterness. Those decisions may seem small in the moment, but they shape the direction of your entire life. Don't underestimate what 1 year of consistent effort can do. Imagine waking up earlier every day to work on your goals. Imagine reading books that expand your thinking instead of spending hours replaying painful memories. Imagine taking care of your health, strengthening your body, improving your finances, developing new skills, and surrounding yourself with people who genuinely support your growth. At first, the changes might seem small, but small improvements repeated every single day create extraordinary results over time. One of the biggest traps people fall into is believing they have to wait until they feel motivated before taking action. That's not how successful people operate. Motivation comes and goes. Discipline stays. There will be mornings when you don't feel like getting out of bed. There will be days when loneliness tries to convince you to give up. There will be moments when memories return unexpectedly. But your future cannot depend on your feelings. It has to depend on your commitment to becoming better than you were yesterday. I want you to stop asking yourself whether they miss you. Ask yourself something more important. Are you becoming the person you've always dreamed of becoming? That's the question that changes everything. Because once your focus shifts toward your own growth, you'll notice that your confidence starts coming from within instead of from other people's opinions. You'll stop seeking validation because you'll already know your worth. Here's something people don't talk about enough. Healing isn't about becoming the person you were before the heartbreak. It's about becoming someone even stronger because of it. Every challenge carries a lesson. Every disappointment carries wisdom. Every setback has the potential to prepare you for opportunities you couldn't have handled before. Pain isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's preparation. The strongest people aren't those who avoided hardship. They're the ones who refuse to let hardship define them. They experience rejection, loss, failure, and disappointment just like everyone else. The difference is they didn't stop growing. They didn't build a permanent home in temporary pain. They kept moving forward even when progress felt slow. One day you'll look back and realize that the person who left actually pushed you toward becoming someone greater. Not because they intended to help you, but because their absence forced you to discover strengths you never knew you had. You learned how to stand on your own. You learned how to value yourself. You learned that your peace is too precious to hand over to someone who doesn't protect it. Success isn't measured by how many people regret losing you. Success is measured by how deeply you respect the person staring back at you in the mirror. Can you honestly say you're living according to your values? Are you becoming more patient, more disciplined, more kind, more focused, and more faithful? Those are the victories that truly matter because nobody can take them away from you. The world doesn't need another person trapped in yesterday. It needs people who have the courage to transform their pain into purpose. Your experiences can inspire someone else who's walking through the same darkness. Your growth can become proof that healing is possible. Your confidence can remind others that rejection isn't the end of the story. Don't waste another month waiting for life to begin again. Life is happening right now. Every sunrise is another opportunity to write a different chapter. Every challenge is another chance to become stronger. Every decision you make today shapes the person you'll become tomorrow. Keep walking, keep learning, keep improving, keep believing in yourself even on the days when progress feels invisible. The seeds you plant today will eventually become the harvest you enjoy tomorrow. There will come a time when people who knew the old version of you won't recognize the person you've become. They'll notice your peace before they notice your success. They'll see your confidence before they see your accomplishments. They'll wonder how you changed so much. When that day arrives, don't become proud or arrogant. Stay humble. Remember where you came from. Remember the nights you thought you wouldn't make it. Remember the tears nobody saw. Remember the prayers whispered in silence. Let those memories remind you how far you've come, not how far you have to go. The greatest comeback has never been making someone regret losing you. The greatest comeback is becoming so deeply rooted in your purpose, your faith, your self-respect,